So my personal favorite new feature in Mozaik 13.1 has to be the inclusion of graphical parts in the insert libraries. So what that means is that you're now able to graphically display a part in three-dimensional space and then add machining operations and parameters to control and drive what those parts do. Grant from Mozaik has done an amazing job at creating some examples of these pullouts, and our team at CADmate has also created some examples, and we're going to run through them in this video to give you a bit of an idea how you can implement this new feature into your workflow. Starting here with the new pullouts, you can see there's a trash pullout here that is graphically displaying the components. All the components are listed out in the new parts tab, and then under operations, we'll see that the operations are all listed out, and then under parameters, you'll see that you've now got all of these parameters to allow you to control and drive the outcome of the way this trash pullout is working. And there's a few different examples that you'll see. Again, a utensil-based pullout, so the ability to drive and control the way this product is built based on the values that you can control on a parameter. Fantastic stuff and really great example of the flexibility of this new feature. We'll also take a look at how to implement that into a product and also a couple of the ones that our CADmate team has added to this as well. So let's go ahead and press OK out of there. And I'm going to first of all dive into a wall cabinet and show you an example of where this can be really beneficial. I'm going to go ahead and first of all add a partition into the middle of this. And then on the left side of this, I'm going to go ahead and instead of splitting this for a shelf, I want to add in an angled shelf. So now I'm going to use the new inserts function to do that. So let's go into inserts and let's go ahead and select cabinet accessories. So first of all, I'm going to start with the angled shelf left and drag and drop that one into my opening. And then I'm going to go across to the next opening and take the angled shelf right and drag and drop that one into my opening. So that's very easily dropped those two shelves in there. But now what one of the new features is you're able to split and copy or duplicate inserts into an opening. Now where that's really flexible and useful is with the addition of geographic components. So let's go ahead and click the multi-split option. And then we'll go ahead and change the divider type to be a separator. So whenever Mozaik recognizes a separator as your multi-split option, it's going to take the insert that you've put into that opening and then duplicate it into the new openings. Let's go ahead and say we want 4 equal sections and press OK. And as you'll see now, it's duplicated the angled shelf 4 times into each of those openings. And let's go ahead and do that same option on the left-hand side. So let's go ahead and make that a separator. 4 equal openings and OK. And as you can see, quite easily and flexible, we've just simply added angled shelves to our openings and displaying them for things like wine bottles that you might want to have sort of floating down and rolling down into those sections. So there's a practical example of how you might use this new feature and function. Let's go ahead and clear this out and look at another way that you might use this. I'm going to put in a partition there, and then I'm going to drop a fixed shelf on this side. And let's say up in this upper right-hand corner, we would like to have a lap joint or a cross-halving joint or a wine rack, as it's also known in different regions. And I'm going to use the example I've made here called lap joint, drag and drop that into the space. And as you can see, that will just snap and derive its size from the opening size. So as this opening increases, it will keep increasing those components because they're graphical components that have rules and formulas behind them to allow them to drop into those inserted openings. What that is actually doing is applying a lap joint or a cross-halving joint into those sections. So if we're looking at in a high detailed mode, what you'll see there is we've got the cross-halving joint allowing those shelves to slide together and interlock. So that's quite a flexible option. And with parameters, you'll be able to drive and control whether you want multiples happening in that section, just like our wine rack products. So this really opens up a whole new realm. You've got to think about a product inside a product as this new option. Looking at some more examples, we'll jump into this base cabinet and we'll go into interior, and let's go ahead and use the new pullout option. So we'll go into inserts here. We'll come down to pullouts, and let's say we want to put in this area here a base cabinet pullout, or maybe we'll look at one of the trash can pullouts. So let's look at a trash can pullout. We'll drop that in. Again, it takes the space of the opening and it does everything. It applies the rules, it applies the graphical items, and it allows you to control the drilling, and it also is showing any of the graphical items that are referenced to this, so things like the draw runners as well. Now, of course, if you want to get in and modify that, you can press Edit. So you can click on the insert itself, press Edit, and then come and go to the Parameters option, and then change anything that you would like to change about that. So for example, if you wanted to change the radius along that top edge, let's go ahead and increase that to 200, press OK, and we'll go back out of there. And now we'll look at that in 3D, and the radius of that top edge has increased. So you've got different controls to be able to drive the outcome of these things. Now, you can also do these things yourself by building any inserts that you might need in your workflow. So you've got the flexibility to do that, but we're also providing some practical examples of how you might utilize this in your space. Now, keep in mind, when you add these openings, you can also go ahead and put separators in. If you want to space that in from the side by a certain amount, you can certainly do that. You can go ahead and drop in any separators or partitions that you might need to work with to give you a flexible space either side of that opening, and then you can drop any of the inserts into that. So if you wanted to then go ahead and put a smaller insert into a certain space like this, like a utensil pullout, well, then you can go ahead and do that. And it's an easy way of controlling the outcome of where that goes and how that works within a product. Some really cool stuff. And I think this is going to be such a benefit to Mozaik customers being able to really drag and drop smart objects into openings. Let's look at another practical example of this. For this example, I'm going to take a look at the new Blum inward opening hinge. So that's just hit the market, and this is really useful in things like walk-in pantries or butler-style kitchens, or hidden door access points. So as you can see, there's a narrow little shelf cabinet there, and the door is opening inwards off that particular cabinet. So let's take a look at how you would build that in Mozaik using just this little open tall cabinet I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my interior, and I'm going to split that. Let's say I want to go ahead and put 5 equal openings, and I'm going to drop the fixed shelves in those positions. And I'm going to go to my door, and I'm going to go ahead and make a door on this. And actually, I'm going to leave it hinged off the right. Now, technically at the moment, that is correct because I'm going to want to open it this way and the door goes inward. So I'm going to need to extend my door out, but also don't really want the standard hinges on that. The reason why is when we go ahead to the face, and let's say we go ahead and adjust this and extend that over, I'm going to drop that over by, let's say, 600 millimeters. Now, as soon as you do that, you are going to lose, or your hinges are going to stay as they are on the outside edge of the door, which in this case is not what we want. So what we're going to do is go into adjust and click delete hinges. And then we're going to go into interior, and we're going to use the new graphical insert items to do this. So we've got some examples here called Blum inwards opening hinge. And I'm going to go ahead and take the cruciform right hinge for the top section and drop that in the top, and then the bottom section and drop that in the bottom. And then any mid sections where I might want hinges, if I might want them in each opening, I can go ahead and do that. Or I can just drop them in the openings that I'd like, and that would snap to the middle of that opening. So I might go ahead and say, look, I actually want this one to snap to the top of that opening and this one to snap to the bottom of that opening. So you've got flexibility in how you want to lay these things out. Now, again, this is adding the graphical item itself and also the machining for that. So we're seeing that hinge graphically displayed, and we're also getting the machining on the right-hand end and the back of the door as well. So super practical examples of how you might use that in your workflow. Looking now at one last option, we'll take a look at a tall cabinet and we'll jump into the interior here. I'm going to split this out and I'm going to just go ahead and drop in a fixed shelf. So let's say I want this fixed shelf to sit at 1100 high. Go ahead and type that in. Now in this opening, if you're using an insert like one of the examples that we've provided, so let's take a look at, say, the Blum inner drawers, and we'll take a look at maybe an Antaro inner drawer. I'm going to go ahead and start with something like a C height Gallery 500. I'm going to drop that in. Now I want to equally space this in this opening 4 times. So to do that, I can now use my multi-split, and I can drop a separator in, and I can drop that into 4 equal sections. Press OK. And now my insert of that Blum drawer has been duplicated 4 times into that space. So very easy then to get that to fit equally within a space just by simply using the new multi-split separator option. So I think there's some great examples of how you can implement graphical insert items into your workflow. Bit of a longer video, this one, but I really needed to highlight the power and flexibility of this new feature. I really think everyone's going to enjoy it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. One of the most popular new features of 13.1 has to be the inclusion of the multi-print tab. So as you can see across the top, you'll now see a multi-print tab. You can click on that. That's going to go ahead and launch and get you straight into the multi-print area, allowing you to use all the nice functions and features of multi-print without having to go to File, Print, Multi-print. So it's a lot quicker to access this, enabling you to dive back and forth from your drawing to the multi-print area at the click of a button. Let's take a look at a few of the 13.1 optimizer improvements. Starting with the option to have a part drawing with an origin symbol. So as you can see here on my screen, I've got a preview of a label, and you can see that this part drawing now has an origin symbol, indicating for secondary operations where you might need to put a part back on a point-to-point or a pod and rail type machine or a vertical drilling machine. You've now got the option to show the part drawing with the origin, which will just help you know which way that part needs to be loaded back on to the secondary drilling machine. The next change we'll take a look at is the order and sequence in which the parts are toolpathed and cut out. So let's take a look at this by jumping into the optimizer, and we'll take a look at the toolpath properties, and we'll go ahead and move over to the small parts tab. Now what you'll see is you've got options on the left, and the new inclusion in 13.1 is the sort large parts by area. But to understand what that does, let's take a quick look at the other options and explain how they work. So with shortest movement, if we go ahead and leave it on that one, we'll go ahead and then look at the patterns, and we'll generate our G-code, and we'll just simulate here how this toolpath is being organized. So let's press simulate. And you can see the first part that's being cut is the biggest part here, and it's moving across in order of what the shortest possible movement or sequence would be. So logically, it's sort of going from this way across to this way and up, keeping the motions or movements of the CNC machine to a minimum amount. Now let's get out of there, and we'll go across to the optimizer and back to the toolpath properties and back into small parts. And let's take a look at smallest parts. Now smallest parts comes down to what the small part area size is. And this is very important to understand, that this one has only been the intention to work with anything that fits into that small part area size. So looking at my settings, I have 130,000 square millimeters as an area, and I have a minimum dimension of 200. Now, let's take a look at that in practicality here. So we have 4 parts on the screen. None of them meet the minimum of 200. So when I go ahead and look at this, even though this component here is 250 by 500, let's just bring over a calculator and type in 250 times 500. And what we're going to see is that's 125,000 square millimeters. So it's under the threshold of the 130,000 that I've got set, but it doesn't meet the second part of that equation, which is the minimum size of 200. So when I have it set to small part size, it's not currently finding any components that fit that rule. So let's go back into the optimizer, and what we'll do is go into toolpath properties and then come into small parts, and let's go ahead and increase this to, let's say 300. Okay, so what we're going to find then when we go back to patterns and we look at the way this works, so let's move this across to the side. Press calculate and simulate, and you'll see now the first component that's being cut is the one that fits under that small part size first, and then it's going to move across then in a logical order to the next component, and so on and so forth. Now, you might decide that you want that approach to work from order of part size, regardless of whether or not your part sizes fit under that small part threshold. And that's what this option is. It's a way of forcing that to happen. So regardless of your small part size. So let's assume that you're not concerned what the small part size is. I can go back to setting this to a lower value if I'd like, but I'm going to tick on that I want the shortest movements, and I want it in order of the largest parts by area. So we're now considering part size. So let's go ahead and generate the G-code and calculate, and we'll simulate that. And what we can see is that it's going in the order of smallest to largest, regardless of what's happening on my small part size. So simple change there, just a really easy one for everyone to enable and check on. Simply go into the optimizer there and into toolpath properties, small parts, and check the option for sort large parts by area. And that's going to make sure that everything gets machined in order of size. In version 13.1 of Mozaik, you'll see the introduction of a QR code generator. So in the multiprint area, in the labels area, and in your assembly sheet area, you'll be able to access this QR code. To utilize this, all you need to do is go ahead and click the QR code icon and then draw the size of the QR code that you would like to input, and then go ahead and give it some information. So this could be something like a web address, or you could pull information from any one of the variables already in Mozaik. As an example, I'm going to go ahead and type www.mozaiksoftware.com, And now if that QR code was to be scanned, it would take you straight to mozaiksoftware.com. We're really excited to see how people are going to utilize this feature. I can see this being used on your title block for driving people to certain content or information. It's also going to be super useful for anyone running multiple CNC machines. Rather than using traditional barcodes, upgrading to QR codes is going to make that code quicker and easier to scan and allow you to pass on more content. So where that will be useful will certainly be in file print and print labels. So for example, if I wanted to modify this label, I might make this part image size here smaller and then go ahead and drop a QR code. So for example, I could go ahead and find a variable, like for example, if I wanted to go to my optimizer and pull out like a secondary G-code file name, it would be as simple as typing the string of text that you would like to input into this area. G-code underscore file name underscore secondary, and have that inside the brackets there to make sure that pulls through as a variable. And again, I can resize that to fit in whichever space I would like. And then that would be a QR code that can now be utilized on your label for scanning secondary part operations and bringing them up perhaps on a point-to-point or a vertical CNC machine. If you use Mozaik for pricing, you're going to love the new addition of the room subtotals. Let's take a look at how you would previously do this, right? If I were to go in and go ahead and select a template to run, you would previously need to filter each room individually and do a pricing run for the kitchen, and then a pricing run for the laundry, and a pricing run for every other room that you have in that job to be able to control them separately and see the prices of each room independently. Well, we've fixed that problem in 13.1 by giving you the ability in your template editor to drag a new function over called room subtotal. Simply drag and drop that into your template and save where you'd like to have that positioned, and then go ahead and run a template, and you'll see now that your rooms are listed out and broken down into subtotals, allowing you to see the exact total of each room, but also expand that out and see what is made up of that room. So it just makes it so much quicker and easier to get a breakdown of every room that is in your project, but see that in a room subtotal, allowing you to present that in a more presentable format to your end client. I think that's going to be a real simple addition that's going to speed up things for anyone using pricing in Mozaik. While we're talking about pricing, let's take a look at some of the new pricing options that you have. In the settings, there's now an option to turn on which says hide empty headers. That just means that any of the headers that are not being used from your pricing template in this particular run will be hidden automatically, keeping the overall appearance of that much cleaner. There's also a few new options that you can pull into your template. So we have a look under the pricing items. There's a few new options in this list here. A couple of the notable ones there, you're going to see the ability to have the number of CNC parts to get a total part count of items that are going to the CNC machine, and also a total of the face frame components in that job as well. Some of the other new pricing line items is the ability to have a buyout door and a manufactured door as well. So you'll see in this list buyout doors versus manufactured doors, so that way you can clearly identify the difference between them on your pricing runs, as well as the inclusion of the number of fillers. So base fillers, wall fillers, and tall fillers have also now been specified, allowing you to cater for them accordingly. And there's also been the addition of catering for top-shaped, face-shaped, and side-shaped cabinets, and being able to identify how many of those exist in each project as well. Jumping out of the template, let's take a look at another new option there. So if there is a blank line that you would like to delete, you now have the ability to simply right click and press delete row. You also have the ability to right click and add a row. So if there's a row that's not being used, you can right click on that one and delete it, or you can also right click and add a new row and then define what you would like that row to say and do. Lastly, I'll just point out that the new pricing run can be added into the report editor as an expanded table as well. So under pricing data and tables, you have a pricing run and a pricing run expanded. If you would automatically like that run to be expanded out and showed you the expanded version of the run, or just simply pricing run will show you the non-expanded version. So assume that all of these have not been expanded, showing you just the high level data versus the expanded table showing you all of those rooms expanded out with the information within them, giving you control over how you'd like to present that data to your client. I hope you enjoy some of the new pricing features in Mozaik 13.1. One of the most common feature requests that has come across my desk is people asking for the ability to center the shelf holes on a cabinet, making the ends reversible. I guess we've all been in that scenario where the team in the factory have unfortunately mixed up the left-hand and right-hand end, and it's not until you're out on site and you've installed the cabinet and you've realized that the shelf holes are not lining up. So to cater for that, we've now added a new function which will allow you to center the shelf holes in the cabinet rather than the shelf being centered. Of course, this is a choice, so then you can choose to keep it the way that you've always been used to using it, or you can change it to center the shelf holes. So right now I've got it set up for having the shelf centered in the cabinet. As you can see, the shelf holes then would be measuring 332 to the bottom and then 348 to the top, meaning that you do have to put the left end on the left and the right hand on the right for this to work. Let's go ahead and look at the new parameter that's in 13.1 to make it possible to center these shelf holes. So let's go down to the boring category and we'll scroll down and you'll see that there's a new option here for adjustable shelf bore reference. It's going to default to the bottom, but you can go ahead and enter that into a cabinet. Of course, you can change this on an entire catalog as well, but I'm going to go ahead and make that set to centered and then bring back up my 3D view. And as you can see, those holes have shifted. Now let's go ahead and update this. Resnap the dimension points here to get the dimensions reading off the center, and we'll pick both of these up and resnap them into place, and then we'll zoom back out. As you can see, my adjustable shelves holes are now 340 in both directions, keeping them equalized in the cabinet. Now you can take that one step further. If you would like to be able to control the shelf pin location, you can do that by having an adjustment value. So as you can see, if I went back to having my reference from the bottom, and rather than the hole itself land in like right on the shelf, you can move that up or down by a value. So you can go ahead then and say, I want to shift that by 5 millimeters. And what you're going to see is the hole will shift up by 5 millimeters. If you go ahead and enter a negative value, then the hole will shift down by that value. So now you can allow for the shelf pin. Quite often, you might need to just cater for the pin itself. So full control on those auto placement of shelf holes. I'm going to find that most people are probably going to go ahead and default that to center. Just note that you can do that for an entire job or your entire catalog for all future jobs. While we're in this area, we're going to take a look at a few of the other parameters that have been added to Mozaik. So a few of the different parameters, especially in your door space-ins, have now been expanded out to allow you to control these for floor, wall, and tall. So things like your side reveal can now be controlled for a base cabinet, a wall cabinet, and a tall cabinet independently. Same with finished ends, and quite a few of the other parameters have now been updated to allow you to control them independently for a base, wall, and tall, giving you just more control on what happens in the automatic placement of products in Mozaik. One other new feature while we're in here is the ability to add a feature called use end stretches. So we're going to go down to the ends and you're going to see a new option there that says use end stretches. This is a common manufacturing style in India. So we're going to go ahead and press yes on that. And what you're going to see is that the end is replaced with a stretcher. So now the product has catered for that. Adjustable shelf holes and everything have moved, keeping the reference to an end stretcher as opposed to a full end. So just some of the new parameters in Mozaik 13.1. And as always, we're changing these parameters to make your life easier. So thank you for your suggestions, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video. In 13.1 of Mozaik, you now have a new option for importing 2020 Design Live jobs into Mozaik. So we can go down to File and select the Import function and then Import 2020 Design. Then go ahead and find the file that you would like to import, select that particular job, and bring that file in. What's really cool about this import is that it's not just bringing the cabinets in for manufacturing purposes, but you're also getting the walls, the windows, the doors, everything that you've laid out and designed in 2020 is coming through into Mozaik. And this works on the concept of matching product codes. So let me explain how that works. In your library product editor in Mozaik, you're going to be able to go into 2020 DL mapping and then go ahead and choose the product that's in Mozaik and swap it out for the product code that comes through from your 2020 catalog. There's also some really cool rules allowing you to dynamically control the sizes. So for example, a wall single door cabinet in Mozaik that is hinged on the left can be specified as being hinged on the left, and you could swap that out for 2020's product code. For example, a W20L can be replaced with a W hashtag L, which would also make it achievable for use of a W12L and a W14L. No need to have every single one of those products in Mozaik. By using this smart product code naming, you're able to just control a bigger catalog with a much smaller selection of products from Mozaik. We're excited to see how our customers are going to be able to utilize this to help manufacture and machine jobs that are designed in 2020 Design Live.